Imagine a hot day in a European village, sun beating down and reflecting off of the bright stonework, temperatures soaring. Then you hear the gentle, welcoming babbling of the village fountain, bringing coolness and relief to all nearby. Don't you think your diorama figures require the same sort of thing? I'll show you how to make a diorama fountain with water right here on Gary's Stuff. Hi, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Now, today I'm making a fountain and I'm going to put some water in it. It's part of a mini art diorama set of a village with a fountain, but I thought it would be great to build on its own because I'm going to show you how to make the little water effect. It's very, very straightforward. Now, the one I'm doing today is using two-part epoxy. You can also use an acrylic to do the water effect, but that's going to be another day on another video. Today I'm just concentrating on the epoxy. If you enjoy the show, and I hope you do, please remember, give it the imperial thumbs up on the like button below because every like counts. And of course, if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell and you'll be notified of all my future content as it's published. And if you'd like to make a more concrete contribution, you could do that through Super Thanks by becoming a channel member or by using any of my online partner programs. Well, let's crack on then, and I'll show you how to make this fountain, village fountain from mini art in 1/35th scale. We're going to do the surround of the fountain. Now, you'll see this piece here and you'll think, okay, I can look for that. And then when you look, you've got all these big blobby bits. What you don't understand, don't realize at first is that this here is superfluous. So the piece actually has to be cut off here as well as down there and there and there. So all of these bits here are just there as part of the molding process to support where these sort of shapes and OGs or whatever they call them come out from the edge, because of course these need to be at like a 45-degree angle to mitre together to make a square trough. So these, as well as having to cut around there, you've got to cut the shapes here, so there's a lot of sanding to do. Now along the top part here, I'll just show you on the thing before I cut it off. The top part here, the plastic here, is quite a lot thinner than the plastic here. It's because it's been sort of stretched out, as it were, to fill the void here. So when you're cutting these out, cut around here. I would then cut around this extension as well, take the whole piece off, and then gently cut around there to get most of these backing off, most of the excess off. So you end up with something like that. And then very slowly work your way around, taking bits off. Don't take too much off. Just don't go too crazy. Get close enough to it that you can then sand it into place with sanding sticks, or very gently pare it down with a knife. But don't go too close to these with your knife first time, because it's very easy to slip and then you're straight across one of these curves and then you've got trouble. Each piece also has a backing that goes on as well, and then you can just glue those into place. And again, get them roughly right, but don't worry too much. We're going to sand these down later, and then when the whole thing's done, we're going to be doing some filling anyway, so just get them roughly right. There are 3 more faces to the fountain. Each of them has the backing like this, so it becomes, theoretically at least, a wall of the base of the fountain. And just put them together, and then when they're set, then we can try and assemble them all into a fountain. The same technique you use to make the sort of central rising column of the fountain. So it comes in 2 halves, and you just cut them out and shave them down with some sandpaper until they're roughly pretty close to being right. You can always take these edges off later on. We can start assembling the fountain now. So the first thing we're going to put in the middle at the back here is the riser for the fountain. It goes all the way to the back here in the middle. Okay. Then the walls can go on one by one. Don't worry about being too massively accurate, because these vac pieces aren't going to be totally accurate yet. We are going to have to do a little bit of filling here and there. And don't worry if it goes out over the cobblestones, that's fine too. But just keep putting in the pieces. As long as they're roughly in the right place, they'll be fine. Maybe in the middle of that. And just work your way around. 1, 2, 3. Next is this cap piece on top of the fountain, like so. Just make sure it's centralized. Yep, that's good enough. Then the spout, as it were, is this strangely shaped thing. We'll take this out first, and then chop the ends off to get the U-shaped channel. So take it out of here first, though. Okay, so there it is, and we just put the spout onto the fountain, let's say. There we go. Now all we have to do is let that set, do a little bit of filling around here and there, a little bit of tidying up, and we can then start spraying it later on. Right, so quickly recap, the I sprayed the whole thing first of all in grey primer, and then I sprayed it all with what was it, a stone, an REF, or a British stone colour, Portland stone, and it was just so yellow, it was horrible. So what I've done is I've then gone over the base with some grey, some sky grey, and I've done a kind of like a wash of dark mud pigment in water in between the flags, just so that kind of brings them up, and then just a little bit of highlighting here and there with a bit more of the sky grey, just to give a little more contrast. Now the actual fountain I've painted in warm grey, this ICM warm grey, which I think works nice as a kind of sort of like a limestone sort of colour. I've then added some shadows just by mixing in a little bit of tiny little bit of black or something, and then just painting in the shadows. Of course, you've got shadows here, you've got highlights. So wherever, like you've got let's see if we can show it on this side, it's a bit better maybe. Wherever you've got a chink in the stone, the top part of the chink is in shadow, so it gets a darker colour. And then the bottom part of that chink is in the lighter colour, so it gives you your 3D look. Just went around to doing that. Also added some highlights to all these edges on the capstone there. A little bit of highlighting to all the way here and the sort of relevant bits here, and then some shadow in the relevant bits as well. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and I painted the nozzle grey. I'm trying to make that look a bit like lead, so I may do a little bit more shading on that before we go too much further. So that's how we've got to where we are. This is just half of a shop bought sort of grassy knoll, bit of grass, and then I've painted in, used some sort of darker brown just to make it look like a bit of a leak. There's been maybe a water leak there, and it's coming through and allowing a little plant to grow. I'll put more sort of dirt and mud around these edges, and then a few spots, maybe one or two more spots of foliage. So next job is I'm going to put in some mossy effects around here, and I'm going to let them dry overnight. And then tomorrow I'm going to put the water in, and we're going to have water dripping down the fountain. Isn't that exciting? Right, so now I painted just this back, just a little bit of dark green. I'm just going to add just some spots of oil paint here, just to start looking a little bit like moss. There we go, moss. Now, don't have to go too crazy with this, but I think it looks quite cool. So a bit of moss growing around the pipe of the fountain. Now I'm going to put just this. This is like a kind of like an apple green first. Then I'm going to put in a few little highlights of another green on top. I'm also going to dab in a little bit of moss along here. And again, I'll fill in some more colour with that later. That's been leaking a while, then it's going to be a bit mossy on the top there. So we have equal amounts of hardener and resin. Add them together and then stir. You don't want to stir them too vigorously because you'll start getting air bubbles in. You can see it starts to go a little bit cloudy first, but that's fine. When that cloudiness disappears, then it's pretty much all stirred together. Do make sure you get into every little nook. These are not great pots for mixing acrylic in, but they're great for pouring it from. So don't worry if there are some air bubbles. There are going to be air bubbles. Most of these, if not all of them, will actually come out by themselves. Don't worry about rushing this because this stuff sets in like a number of hours, so you've got plenty of working time with it. Just make sure you can see it starts to go very clear again when it's completely mixed. Okay, so for the first stage, I'm going to just pour a bit of epoxy into the base here, just because we don't want to do too much in one go. If we put like about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch already in, then it will look like water. It will set like water, and then we can put the effect on top of that. Right, with the piece to be worked on, we're going to start by just putting some acrylic or some epoxy up on this chute up here. Really just a tiny amount to begin with. think that'll do. That's more. That's enough. Then we will get some. We'll get some cotton wool, get it roughly the right length. You need to look for a different piece too. You're going to need it to cascade nicely. It's a bit long there, so take that off. Okay, I think we've got that okay. Right, so we need to just twist the cotton wool at the top, have it coming out of the spout. And down into the water. Just put that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now once we've done that, we can start dropping some epoxy down the cotton wool. And just sort of brush it down. And start making it look like a cascade of water. And then what I would do is just add just a bit more to the bottom to cover up the splash area. Remember, don't do more than about 1/4 of an inch at a time, because this stuff gets very overheats if you do too much, and that will start generating air bubbles. But it will find its natural level, and just leave it at that. You can add more bits of cotton wool where you want to. Just sort of pat them into the resin and add a bit more resin if you need to. And you can put a bit of resin up here just on its own. That just sort of looks more like running water, which then sort of aerates as it falls. Anyway, when you're happy, leave it alone. It's my advice. There we go. I'm happy with that now. So we'll leave that. Now that is going to take about 12 hours to set, maybe a bit more. It will be solid and clean and finished in 24 hours. Completely cured, I think, in about 48. So it's a long process to wait for, but it's worth waiting. Now, as it hardens, you can try to do a bit of rippling, but it will find its own level very, very quickly. Now, obviously, you're not going to go straight into this on your favorite diorama that you've spent ages building. I'm going to practice this first. And here, I've just got like one of my plastic mixing tubs. I use this for mixing paint before I spray it, for example. I just glued a bit of plastic, just scratch plastic I had lying around in here. And then I can use it to practice draping the cotton wool, and then a pool of acrylic at the bottom you can just feed up and make sure that you're happy with the way the water's falling. May fluff it up or not, as the case may be. Keep control of all the spare bits of fibre that are going around, and just let that set and make sure you're happy with how much cotton wool you're using and how much acrylic you're using. And also it gets you used to how you can work with it while it's still hardening. You can leave it for quite a while and then come back later and just sort of fluff up the surface of the water, maybe make some like ripples in the water, but we'll have a look at that later on. There we go then. See, it's reasonably straightforward to do with two-part epoxy, and it's a not very demanding scenario. I mean, look, it's not Niagara Falls. Let's be honest. It's just some water coming out of a fountain. I think it looks pretty realistic though, and I'm very happy with it. Hope you are too. If you've enjoyed the show, please do remember, Imperial thumbs up on the like button below, because every like counts. And if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe to the channel, hit that bell, and you'll be notified of all my future content as it is released. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Take very good care now, and goodbye.